Joining us now to take a closer look at Senator Sanders' plan is Miro Korenha, co-founder of the environmental news website Our Daily Planet. Miro, good to see you. Thank you for joining us. I want to get into the nitty-gritty of this with you because that's what you guys do. You specialize at this stuff. There's a report from the Washington Post on Sanders' plan, and it says the high cost of Sanders' plan is due in part to eschewing partnership with private businesses to erect the wind turbines and solar panels needed to hit his goal of 100% renewable energy in the power sector by 2030. Instead, Sanders wants to establish a new federal electric utility to provide power to Northeast and Midwestern states while expanding the 4 existing federal power administrations that cover most of the rest of the lower 48. I'm intrigued by this only because one of the things we're trying to figure out is something that's going to cost $10 trillion or $15 trillion or $20 trillion to redo our economy, our carbon-based economy. Do we do this hand in hand with business? Should government be taking that big a role in this whole thing? How do you look at this, and how do you recommend that these candidates move forward on their suggestions?
Sure. Well, I think one of the things to note is that in Senator Sanders' plan, he's willing to declare climate change a national emergency. So right off the bat, that gives the President of the United States specific executive powers that he can use for things like eminent domain, because in order to build out this modernized grid, in order to expand renewable energy, there are going to have to be new transmission lines built. And those transmission lines will have to run through a lot of privately owned land. So I think first and foremost, that's how we have to think of Senator Sanders' plan, is that he is willing to elevate climate change to the highest level and use his powers accordingly.
But that is going to get more pushback than even the normal pushback that he's going to get by saying he wants to be decarbonized by 2050. What does decarbonized mean to you?
So decarbonization in so many sectors, in transportation, in housing, certainly in how we generate energy. As you've mentioned before on your program, it's very heavily reliant on fossil fuels. And furthermore, our economy is based to function on the reliance of fossil fuels. So separating our economy from this reliance is going to be a big challenge. And I think in Senator Sanders' proposal, he lays out a pretty good groundwork for how we might do that and the various sectors that we have to consider, such as transportation, which is heavily emphasized in his plan. Because right now, transportation is the #1 source of greenhouse gas emissions in the United States. So I think that him and his staff have really thought through these sectors and how we separate them from reliance on fossil fuels.
So the distinction here between being carbon neutral by a certain date and decarbonization is significant. He's talking about by 2050 having no use for fossil fuels.
That's right. Yes. And so I think that also eliminates things like carbon offsets. So, right. If industries are going to buy offsets, so, someone somewhere in the world isn't emitting carbon while we get to do so, that phases that out. So that's how you get back to address carbon neutrality versus outright.
Is that reasonable? Is decarbonization something that we should be talking about all the time? Is that a reasonable expectation?
I think so. I think more than anything, we should focus on the opportunities that exist in decarbonization. And Senator Sanders' plan certainly does that through the creation of jobs, through ensuring that frontline communities and communities of color especially have the resources to participate in this new vision for the future, and that it's not just wealthy Americans that get to profit off of this new economy and are also able to pick up and leave if their homes burn down or if sea levels rise, and eliminate where they live.
Miro, good to talk to you. Thank you for joining us. Miro Korenha is the co-founder of Our Daily Planet. And a reminder, MSNBC is teaming up on climate change with Georgetown and Our Daily Planet. September 19th and 20th, Chris Hayes and I will host and moderate a 2-day climate forum with the 2020 presidential candidates. Up next.